You walk into a room you've never seen, but your body stiffens, your breath slows, and some part of you whispers, "I've been here before." You can't explain it. Nothing in your memory places you there, but the familiarity is undeniable, not just visual, but emotional, somatic. That isn't nostalgia, that is an imagination. And no, it's not your brain making a glitch. What you're experiencing is a moment where two realities touched, briefly, precisely, and you felt the seam between them. This isn't déjà vu. It's a dimensional slip, a temporary overlap between your timeline and another one that also belongs to you. It might be a version where you made a different choice, where you turned left instead of right, spoke instead of stayed silent, lived instead of hesitated. And sometimes, those paths drift so close to this one that your nervous system picks it up before your logic ever catches on. That's why it hits so hard, because your body knows, your field knows, your soul never forgot. The question isn't, why does this keep happening? The real question is, what are you being shown? Because the moment you stop dismissing the slip as an error, you begin to read it as a message. What déjà vu really isn't. Most people have heard the same explanation. Déjà vu is just your brain lagging behind itself. A glitch, a temporary loop, an error in the system. But if that were true, why does it carry so much emotional weight? Why do some of these moments feel like warnings, reunions, or even previews of something you were never taught to expect? Science calls it a memory misfire. But memory doesn't usually feel this precise, this intense, this alive. And here's what no one tells you. The brain is a translator. It processes reality, but it doesn't create all of it. So when you experience déjà vu, what's really happening might have nothing to do with brain chemistry, and everything to do with dimensional alignment. Your mind tries to file it under familiar mistake, but your field, the energetic body around you, knows better. Because it's not the scene that repeats, it's the resonance. It's the echo of another version of this moment that your soul has already crossed. That's why it catches you, why it stops your movement, why it makes time feel warped, even if only for seconds. You're not just remembering, you're encountering something. And that something doesn't fit in the folder labeled coincidence. Your mind registers one reality, but your field feels another. You're walking through your day. Nothing seems out of place. Everything around you makes sense, at least to your eyes. But suddenly something shifts. A smell, a color, a sentence spoken by someone nearby. And for no clear reason, you freeze. You feel something that doesn't match what you're seeing. That's not imagination. That's your field reacting to a frequency that's not from here, but close enough to touch. Your conscious mind registers this timeline, this version of reality. It filters for logic, linearity, continuity. But your energy field doesn't follow those rules. It remembers vibrations. It stores impressions. It resonates with echoes of versions of you that exist parallel to this one. So when déjà vu strikes, what you're actually feeling is a frequency collision. Two moments from two timelines, overlapping just long enough for your field to pick up both, while your mind scrambles to explain one. This explains why your body often reacts before your thoughts do. The chills, the pause in breath, the sudden emotion that arrives without context. You're not malfunctioning. You're detecting. You're perceiving through your non-linear self. And that moment, that strange, almost sacred tension, isn't confusion. It's a slip between realities that your field still knows how to navigate. even if your conscious mind forgot how to listen. The grid between timelines isn't solid. We've been taught that time moves forward, a clean straight line from past to present to future. But what if that model is too simple? What if time is layered, like threads crossing, weaving, sometimes even tangling? You're not walking down a single path. You're moving across a grid, and that grid, it's not solid. Every decision you've made and every decision you didn't make spins off a new possibility, a new path, a new version of you. Those paths don't just vanish, they exist. They run parallel to this one. And though most of the time you can't feel them, they're not far. They hum beside your life, echoing at just enough distance for your energy to stay separate, until the moment it doesn't. Because sometimes the grid weakens, the space between realities gets thin, and in that space, you slip. Déjà vu isn't your brain lagging. It's your awareness brushing up against another strand of your life. One where something went slightly different, but close enough that the resonance leaks through. In that moment, you're in both timelines, even if only for a breath. And your soul? It knows that space. It recognizes the signature, not as illusion, but as access. Dimensional overlap. When two versions of you touch. There are moments when everything feels normal, until it doesn't. You pause mid-step. A sentence stops in your throat. Your skin tightens without warning. And then it passes, like nothing happened. But something did. Because in that moment, you may have crossed paths with a version of yourself living out a different choice. One where you turned left instead of right. Spoke the truth instead of staying silent. Stayed instead of leaving. Or never met the person who changed everything. These other yous aren't fictional. They're vibrational. They exist as possibilities that your soul has already mapped and, in some cases, partially lived. And every once in a while, two of these versions drift close. So close that your timelines blur. For just a second, you feel what they feel. You carry their memory. You hold a knowing that doesn't belong to your current storyline, but somehow fits like it does. It's not imagination. It's dimensional resonance. The soul is multi-locational. It can exist in layers. It can fold back onto itself. And in the places where those folds align, you experience the overlap. This explains the sensation of split memory, of knowing how something ends before it begins, of crying over something you've never lived, but have absolutely felt. Because somewhere else, you did live it. And just for a breath, the veil lifted, and you met yourself in a place beyond logic. Why familiar places feel like dreams you didn't have. You enter a city for the first time, walk into a house you've never been in, stand in a hallway with strangers' furniture, and suddenly, you know the smell, the layout, where the light hits at sunset. It's not just recognition, it's remembrance without context. But you have no memory of this place, no photo, no explanation, no past attached to it. That's because you're not remembering from here. You're recalling from somewhere parallel. Places, just like people, hold energy. They store frequency. And when your energy meets a space you've inhabited in another version of your life, your field reacts. It might come as déjà vu, or as a quiet grief, or a sudden burst of joy that makes no sense in the moment. In those places, you feel home without history. You feel longing without a story. You feel connected without having built the bridge. Some say these are fragments from dreams you forgot. But what if the dream was real, just not here? Somewhere in the layered fabric of your soul, you stood in that room. You touched that wall. You lost someone at that corner. or you found someone in that park. And now, your current self brushes against that version. And even if your mind can't trace it, your body does. That familiarity isn't a glitch, it's an echo, and it means you've been more places than your passport remembers. Emotional lag as evidence of dimensional movement. Have you ever felt a wave of sadness with no reason? Or a sudden joy that didn't match your moment? Like your body remembered something before you had time to ask why? This is emotional lag, and it may be the most human evidence of something deeply non-linear. When your consciousness shifts, when you momentarily slide across dimensions, your emotions often arrive first. Your system reacts to an energetic reality your logic hasn't caught up with yet. Think of it like a delay in audio and video. The feeling plays before the image appears. You cry, then understand. You shiver, then see. You pause, then realize. Why? Because your emotional body is faster than your rational one. It can register frequency shifts instantly, especially when crossing energetic boundaries between timelines. These aren't mood swings. They're messages, whispers from another version of you trying to signal that something just shifted, that your path just bent ever so slightly, that a part of you is standing elsewhere for a breath. This is why some emotional reactions feel disproportionate to the moment, because they don't belong only to the moment. They belong to an overlap. The key isn't to dismiss these waves, it's to trace them. Ask what they connect to, because if you follow the thread, it often leads to something your soul remembers, even if your story doesn't. Sleep, trance, and shift points. There are gateways in your day that feel ordinary, but they're anything but. Falling asleep, waking suddenly, losing focus while staring out a window, zoning out in a conversation, getting lost in a repetitive task. These are shift points, moments where your conscious mind relaxes just enough for something else to slip through. Your brain calls it low focus or theta state. But spiritually, it's more like a door opening between realities. That's why some of your most vivid déjà vu comes right after you wake up, or during moments when you're barely here. You're not tired, you're transitioning, because sleep is not just rest, it's re-entry. And your dreams, they're sometimes not dreams at all. They're experiences your awareness visited while your body stayed still. Trance states, intentional or accidental, can also lead to dimensional bleed-through. That's why many mystics, artists, and even children speak truths they don't remember learning, because they were touching timelines with different versions of knowledge. The more relaxed the conscious gate, the more easily you shift. And these micro-shifts can explain the strange timing of déjà vu, synchronicities, or sudden flashes of memory. It's not about being unconscious. It's about becoming less locked in one layer. And in that softness, you meet fragments of your other selves passing by in silence. The role of glitches and reality hiccups. You've dropped your keys on the table, but seconds later, they're gone. You check the same pocket 3 times, empty. Then suddenly, they're there, exactly where you just looked. A word loops in your head. A clock flickers for no reason. You see the same number 3 times in an hour, on a license plate, a receipt, a phone screen. These are not just accidents. They're hiccups in your timeline. Brief desynchronizations where your reality wavers just enough for something else to show through. Mainstream culture calls them coincidences, but esoteric science calls them disruptions in the field. Glitches, and the more conscious you become, the more you start to notice them. Reality is not fixed. It's woven, and imperfectly. Your perception rides on patterns, frequencies, and expectations. So when one piece shifts, even slightly, you feel the ripple. It might come as déjà vu. It might come as a sudden silence, like the room holding its breath. Or it might come as a moment you can't explain, because it didn't happen entirely here. Some of these glitches are invitations, markers, checks from your higher self to say, "You're not locked. Pay attention." Others are side effects of dimensional closeness, when another version of this timeline gets so near that it recolors your current one for just a beat. And when that happens, you don't need to panic. You need to notice, because the glitch isn't always the problem. Sometimes it's the door. Children, animals, and the dimensional sensitivity we unlearn. Ever notice how babies stare at empty corners? Or how dogs bark at nothing, then go silent? How cats follow things across the room that no one else can see? It's not imagination. It's resonance without filters. Children and animals exist closer to raw perception. Before conditioning, before explanation, before the mind starts rejecting what doesn't fit its structure. They feel what the field is doing. They sense when something is off, not because it's wrong, but because it's in between. A child might stop mid-sentence and say, "I dreamed this before," or walk into a room and instantly become quiet. Not scared, just tuned. Their energy systems haven't been trained to discard what isn't physical. So when a dimensional slip happens, they catch it, fully. And that includes echoes of other timelines, glitches, emotional lags, and déjà vu states. They move through them like fish through currents, while adults try to explain the water. The tragedy? We teach them to stop, to ignore it, to rationalize what was once pure knowing. But the gift, you can return to it. By watching how they move, how animals track subtle vibrations, how a child senses when something shifts, you relearn the language you were born fluent in, and later taught to forget. Sensitivity isn't weakness, it's dimensional literacy. And the younger you, the version of you before words, was already reading the field. Dimensional memory. When your dreams aren't dreams, there are dreams that feel like echoes, faded, strange, impossible to hold. And then there are others, sharp, vivid, almost too real. You wake up not confused, but homesick, or heavy, or clear in a way that can't be explained. Those aren't just dreams, they're dimensional memories. Because when you sleep, you don't just rest. You disconnect from this linear channel and tune in to parallel ones. In that state, you're not limited by the rules of this timeline. You remember people who don't exist here, places you've never visited physically, conversations that unfold like déjà vu in reverse. Some of those memories are fragments from timelines where you made different choices. Some are lives running concurrently, accessible when your conscious defenses go quiet. That's why it's possible to dream of someone you've never met, and then meet them, or solve a problem in a dream that you couldn't crack in waking life. You didn't imagine the solution. You borrowed it from another version of you. And sometimes you wake up with knowledge, a skill, or even an emotional closure that feels like it didn't come from here. That's because it didn't. It came from the part of you that's still active somewhere else. And your dream wasn't a story. It was a transmission. Why you feel like you're meant to be elsewhere. There's a feeling that follows some people like a quiet shadow. I don't belong here. Not in this city. Not in this job. Not even in this version of life. It's not depression. It's not escapism. It's dimensional dissonance. Because when you carry energy from timelines you haven't fully lived, or that still run parallel to your current one, you feel the pull. A magnetic sensation that part of you is active somewhere else. You may feel constantly in transition, as if waiting for something to click, like you're rehearsing a role you never fully stepped into, and the people around you can't see it. They think you're distracted, restless, unfocused. But what's really happening is that your soul is tracking fragments of paths you were also meant to explore. Sometimes it's a different career. Sometimes a love that never crossed this version. Sometimes a version of you that stayed in the country instead of moving to the city, or chose silence over confrontation. And even though you're here, your body holds the blueprint of those unlived roots. That's why you feel like a stranger, even in familiar spaces. Why certain names, smells, or locations pull you into a mood you can't define. It's not failure. It's not confusion. It's the consequence of being a soul that spans multiple timelines. And the ache to be somewhere else, it's not about escape. It's about integration. How to anchor yourself without losing access. Once you start to perceive dimensional slips, the flashes, the overlaps, the emotional echoes from elsewhere, it can be overwhelming. You begin to question what's real. You wonder if you're grounded. You ask, how do I live here, knowing I'm also living in other places? The answer is not to shut down your perception. It's to anchor it, to root yourself in this timeline without closing the channels to the others. Because being present doesn't mean being blind. It means being aware while still choosing to act from here. You can feel the shift and stay in your body. You can experience the memory without abandoning your current story. Think of it like standing at the center of a wheel. Each spoke leads to another version of you, another choice, another outcome. But your power lies in the hub, in the still point, in this now. Anchoring means breath before reaction, observation before identification, choosing curiosity over fear, staying in the moment, even when the moment feels layered. You are not meant to drift endlessly between timelines. You are meant to hold the thread, to become the one who notices the fabric without unraveling it. And the more grounded you become, the more accurate your perception becomes. Because your sensitivity isn't meant to scatter you. It's meant to refine you. You are not losing your grip. You're expanding your range. And that expansion only becomes wisdom when you stay rooted long enough to make use of what you've seen. You're not glitching. You're remembering. You're not broken. You're not malfunctioning. You're not imagining things. You're remembering. These flashes, echoes, chills, these moments of I've been here before, they're not signs of confusion. They're signs of capacity. You are more than one storyline, more than one lifetime, more than one version of self. And the slips you feel aren't errors, they're threads. Threads tugging at your awareness, asking you to see not just where you are, but what you've always been connected to. So next time it happens, don't flinch, don't brush it off, don't shrink. Pause, observe, listen. Because the moment you stop calling it déjà vu is the moment you start calling it access. When did you last feel the shift? Tell me below. What was your most vivid déjà vu moment? Where were you? What did it feel like? Because in the next video, we're going deeper. I'll show you how to use dimensional slips consciously to align your choices, break old loops, and remember why you came here in the first place. So, subscribe, turn on notifications, because the next time it happens, you'll know it's not a glitch. It's a door. And when the archives open again, you'll feel it. Until next one. Astral Archives transmission complete.